Still to come in the afternoon show today. We'll have the sports news coming up at 5:15. Look at the weather forecast as well at about 5:25. Main Solent news at 5:30. Guide to what's on the television tonight at 20 to 6. And Bob Everett Sports Preview at 6 o'clock. Serving the South, this is the sound of BBC Radio Solent, your local station. Five o'clock, news time from Jane McIntyre.
The National Union of Seamen says exploratory talks are to be held with Sealink management over the weekend in the dispute which has led to many cross-channel ferries being cancelled and has also spread to Irish Sea services. The National Union of Seamen is balloting its 12,000 members employed by Sealink and recommending action in protest of the sacking of almost 500 men on Channel Island services. With this report, Mary Marr.
All the time as relief crews coming onto ships are balloted on taking action. So far, every vote has come out in favour of striking. Sailings from Folkestone to Boulogne have been suspended. There are no Sealink ferries running from Dover, although ships run by other companies are not affected. In Harwich, seamen on the Hook of Holland service have voted to stay in port for 48 hours. The dispute has now spread to the Irish Sea, with this afternoon's sailing from Holyhead to Dunleary cancelled, and Sunday's crossing from Fishguard to Rosslare will also not run.
Local officials from the Transport Union are still meeting in Southampton to decide what action to take over the dispute. If dockers at Portsmouth are instructed to black the British Channel Island ferries vessel Corbière, it could cut off the last sea link between Portsmouth and the Channel Islands. Dockers in Jersey have already said this evening's sailing of the ferry will be the last one they'll handle. Meanwhile, seamen on board the 4 Sealink ships in Portsmouth, Weymouth, Guernsey and Cherbourg have voted to continue their sit-in protest. Only 17 of the 322 involved voted to leave. The people of South Africa have been considering the implications of the decision by the American Senate to override President Reagan's veto of economic sanctions against Pretoria. It's generally agreed in South Africa that the American Congress has imposed more stringent sanctions than those invoked so far by other Western nations. One business leader said that although the measures would hit hard, they wouldn't be devastating. Britain does not intend to change its position on sanctions despite the Senate decision. A Foreign Office spokesman said the British government and EEC countries had already decided on restrictions. The Labour Party conference in Blackpool has ended in buoyant mood with the traditional singing of the red flag. Our political staff say it's been a successful week for Labour, with the party more united than for many years. Police in Dorset, aided by 5 other forces, are mounting a strict security operation in Bournemouth, where the Tory party conference opens next week. They're determined to prevent a repetition of the terrorist bombing of the Grand Hotel in Brighton 2 years ago. They say they're satisfied they've taken every possible precaution. The judge at the trial of an Essex PC accused of damaging 28 cars aboard a cross-channel ferry has completed her summing up, and the jury will be sent out to consider their verdict on Monday. PC James Hollick, aged 33, of St Margaret's Road in Chelmsford, has denied 5 sample counts of damaging property on the Townsend-Torreston ferry Viking Valiant in October last year. The prosecution allege he damaged the cars after he'd been drinking. The defence claim he couldn't have been responsible for all the damage. Today, Judge Deirdre McKinney completed her summing up at Portsmouth Crown Court and said she'd send out the jury on Monday morning. The Olympic pentathlete Jim Novak has been found guilty by a naval court-martial of disobeying an order from a superior officer to get his hair cut. He was accused during the hearing at Portsmouth of putting his athletics career before his duties in the Navy, where he was serving as a leading physical training on HMS Nelson. Here's Bill Jones.
Novak, a 30-year-old who represented Britain in the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, was fined £300 and stripped of 3 good conduct badges. He was charged with disobeying through neglect an order to get his hair cut and to report to a superior officer in uniform shoes. The court heard that Novak from Portsmouth received outstanding reports for his service in the Falklands, but has asked to leave the Navy to concentrate on the 1988 Olympics. In his defence, Lieutenant Commander Jeff Blackett said Novak's career as an athlete had become more important to him than the Navy.
A Southampton professor is warning that the Wessex Health region could be in line for an epidemic of whooping cough this autumn. Professor Colin Norman says the number of children suffering from the disease is already up on last year. He's urging parents to get their children immunised to help avoid further cases. The weather this evening and tonight will be dry. The moderate easterly breeze will become very light inland, but stay around force 3 or 4 on the coast. Temperatures will drop rapidly after dark, but the night won't be too cold, with lowest temperatures around 8 degrees Celsius by morning. It'll become misty, and in some low-lying spots there'll be some thick fog patches. Tomorrow morning the fog will clear quickly, then the day will be dry with a fair amount of sunshine. That's it. There'll be a full roundup of the day's news here on BBC Radio Solent at 5:30.
The sound of the sound.
But now it's 5:05. You're listening to the afternoon show.
And more from the afternoon show travel desk. Well, all buses are running to time so far, so to find out the latest on the roads, let's cross to AA headquarters and Alison Haywood.
Good afternoon. Starting in Southampton, Cumberland Place is closed to westbound traffic between Commercial Road and London Road. And this, with the diversions already in force in Bedford Place, is causing congestion at peak times. And on the M27 north of Southampton, the Chilworth Link Road, which goes from the motorway's eastbound carriageway onto the A33 northbound, is completely closed for resurfacing. And traffic is being diverted via Junction 5 and causing long tailbacks. In Fareham, there are delays on the A32 Gosport Road outside Tom Parker's Dairy. And across to Portsmouth, traffic heading out of the city is being held up in Twyford Avenue and also on the Rudmore roundabout, where work continues on the new flyover. Finally, if you're heading north, diversions are operating on the A33 between Chinham and Sherfield-on-Loddon for gasboard works, which is causing about 20-minute delays. And on the A34 at East Ilsley, just north of Newbury, only one lane is in use on both sides of the dual carriageway, so both north and southbound traffic can expect delays. This is Alison Haywood at the AA, and back to Kevin at the studio.
Thank you, Alison. On the ferries, the only service to the Channel Islands from the south coast ports is that provided by the British Channel Island ferries at Portsmouth. Sailings are at present confined to passengers and cars and not freight. However, the threat of industrial action by dockers in Jersey could cause further problems for this service over the weekend. But the ferries across to the island are running okay, as is the hydrofoil, and no problems with hovercraft either. But to find out the latest on the railways, here's Ken Hood from British Railway.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm pleased to say there are no problems in this area this evening for rail travellers. The railway engineering works for the weekend, however, will take place between Basingstoke and Eastleigh, starting at 23:20 hours on Saturday and finishing at 06:55 hours on Sunday morning. A special bus will operate between Basingstoke and Eastleigh during that period, and passengers in the Southampton area are advised to check times with the nearest information office or contact Telephone Enquiry Bureau on Southampton 229393 before travelling. The line will also be closed between Wool and Dorchester from 23:20 hours on Saturday evening until 17:40 on Sunday evening. A special bus service will operate between Wool and Dorchester, and passengers in that area are advised to contact their Telephone Enquiry Bureau on Weymouth 785501 or Bournemouth 28216 before travelling. I must mention this weekend, of interest to passengers travelling from the Portsmouth area, all weekend until 0400 hours on Monday, extensive engineering work between Fratton and Portsmouth. All services in and out of Portsmouth will be subject to alteration, so passengers in that area are also advised to contact Portsmouth Enquiry Bureau on Portsmouth 825771. Thank you very much, and back to Kevin in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ken. Ken Hood there from British Rail. Time right now, just coming on to 9 minutes past 5. Back to David.
The financial news now from the BBC City News Unit at 4:15. Another bout of nervousness about interest rates meant that share prices drifted lower. The latest Financial Times index was down 9.7 at 1,236.3. On the foreign exchanges, the pound is just about holding its own in thin, nervous trading. A few minutes ago, the pound was trading at $1.44. That's up 0.7%, and the sterling index closed up 0.1 at 68.2. Looks like the exchange rates haven't quite come through yet, but we'll bring those to you after Men at Work and Down Under.